Every case that come at me, I'm gonna bring it to you. You officially my employee of the month.
If Tommy wouldn't have showed up, me and you would be on top.
I mean, you just stepped over me.
It was unanimous.
Look harder at Tommy Egan.
It's been handled.
I'm gonna have so much fun killing you.
So we're now in the home stretch. It definitely has been a great season so far. The pacing of the show has been much better this season. The storyline feels more like OG Power. There's been some great twists and turns. And I do think the fact that it is the final season, it definitely adds a bit more tension to each episode where we know they're building up to some big moments. For example, in episode 7 with Tommy and Diamond. And we're definitely going to be getting into that in a bit more detail later on. But after episode 6, alliances have now shifted, relationships have changed, there's going to be some unlikely alliances, new business partnerships, and a complete flip of the chessboard. Tommy still has Stacy Marx in his back pocket, that definitely hasn't changed. What has changed though, is Miguel Garcia is now on red alert when it comes to the Marquez cartel. The relationship with Jernard and Shanti has completely broken down. Vic seems to have made his move to get out from both under Stacy Marx and Tommy Egan, and the business partnership between Tommy and Diamond looks to be completely done. Because we're finally in for Tommy versus Diamond, where Tommy does look as if he is about to get his ass handed to him in episode 7. It looks like we're in for a crazy couple of scenes at some point in episode 7 between Jernard, Tommy, Diamond, and the rest of CBI. As always, there are also a couple of scenes from the official trailer and the teasers that may match up to potentially episode 7, so we're definitely going to be running through those in this particular trailer breakdown. Now just a quick comment on the OG character that was supposed to return in episode 6. Gary Leonard did mention a OG character would appear in episode 6. I held that quote back specifically so I could bring it when we passed episode 5 in anticipation for that return for that character, but that never actually materialized. I'd probably lean towards him being mistaken about it being in episode 6. I do think we will see an OG Power character return. I personally believe he may have just got mixed up with another episode, and my money is still on the Italians, so let's keep our eyes peeled. But in terms of episode 7, first up as usual is the title and synopsis. Now the title of episode 7 is Lines in the Sand, and the synopsis reads, while some relationships are mended, other brewing tensions are reaching boiling point, setting the stage for unlikely allies. Now this is something we have been speaking about for the past 2 or 3 weeks, unlikely alliances, business partnerships, and relationships basically taking a turn. We specifically spoke about Tommy and Shanti potentially forming an alliance, and also Tommy and Miguel. And after what we saw in episode 6 as well at the Garcia/Egan dinner, the tables definitely have turned. Jernard and Shanti's relationship as well, that's completely broken down. But in terms of the episode title, Lines in the Sand, it does sound as if characters are going to be forced to pick a side. Who's in CBI's fold, who's out, and who's with Tommy. Boundaries will most likely be drawn, we know alliances are fractured, so in episode 7 we are going to see characters who are going to be forced to pick a side. Which, when we think about a season of Power, that's the moment when we reach a point of no return. Jernard and Diamond have strengthened their bond, Diamond's definitely made his choice, Tommy's most likely being kicked out of CBI, Miguel chose to protect Tommy and his family over the Marquez cartel, Vic seems like he's done being a pawn in Tommy's chess game, Stacy Marx is still Tommy's ace up his sleeve, and Jernard and Shanti's relationship definitely has completely fallen apart. So every character is at breaking point, whether you're talking alliances, family, loyalty, or survival. Episode 7, based on the title and synopsis, is where everybody does pick a side. And once they make that choice, there's no going back. So that's the episode title and synopsis. Let's move over to Tommy and Stacy Marx.
Every case that come at me, I'm gonna bring it to you. You officially my employee of the month.
Now going into episode 7, Tommy still has Stacy Marx right where he wants her. He mentions every case that he has against him, she's going to help defuse the situation. She's basically Tommy's employee of the month. Now the problem with a character like Stacy Marx, she's a character who loves power and control in her own way. Characters like Rock, Ghost, Claudia Flynn in Force, they all love control. But the minute you take that away from them and strip them away from what makes them powerful, that's when you see the other side. For example, when Ghost was in jail, when Rock lost control over Kanan, or when Claudia Flynn was in jail in the first half of season 3. But these types of characters, they will always try and fight back, and I have no doubt Stacy Marx is the same. She tried to do so in episode 5 and also 6, but to no avail. At the moment, she definitely has no choice but to work for Tommy. Tommy's got her right where he wants her, but I'm sure there will come a moment where she will try and regain her power and control again.
Maybe we should look harder at Tommy Egan.
It's been handled.
We've also got Detective Seng telling Stacy Marx that maybe they should be looking harder at Tommy Egan, with Stacy Marx saying it's been handled. Now the problem with AUSA Seng going after Egan, which benefits him and the Marquez cartel, that's directly in conflict with the deal that Stacy Marx has been forced into with Tommy. For her to get what she wants, which is to become mayor of Chicago, she still needs to keep Tommy on side, because he's the one who's providing her with all the funds through Pageant Inc. And he's also got the tape of Alicia that would blow up Stacy's entire career. He's also giving her a few wins to keep her campaign on the right track by giving her members of the Marquez cartel, which happens to be in direct conflict with AUSA Seng. Let's remember, he works for Ortega and the Marquez cartel. Now, AUSA Seng has every right to question Stacy Marx. We saw the look between them towards the end of episode 6 when they raided Gabriel Ortega's home. Seng definitely won't want any more members of the Marquez cartel to be arrested, because then he's going to come under fire with the Marquez cartel. I'm sure he'll be asking questions, why has Stacy Marx changed her tune? Because not long ago she was obsessed with catching Tommy Egan, but all of a sudden, now he's not even in the frame. That look between Seng and Stacy Marx, I definitely think he knows that she's compromised. So it's going to start to get very interesting from within law enforcement. You can definitely sense something is brewing, and it's definitely reaching boiling point. And when you think about Lines in the Sand, the episode title, it can also be applied to the situation here between AUSA Seng and Stacy Marx. Pick a side.
Marquez is coming for us. I need you motherfuckers to strap up.
Now, on the Marquez cartel coming for Miguel and the Insane Princes, we know why they're going to be coming for Miguel because of the events of episode 6. Miguel went to go see Roberto Ortega. He gave him the story of his grandfather and the Mexican passion flower. Similar to the Jimenez cartel, the Marquez cartel have a calling card, which was the Mexican passion flower, which was sent to Miguel right at the end of episode 6. So now they're on red alert for the Marquez cartel. Now, I do think we have seen a few more clues when it comes to the war between Miguel and the Marquez cartel. We saw this scene way back during the original trailer that was released, where we question who this could be behind Miguel. Well, I do think we now have our answer. Definitely is the Marquez cartel with their hands on Miguel. Whether he survives or not is a different question entirely. I do think time is ticking for Miguel, even though the whole baby storyline kind of has made him see sense. I do think it is too late. I personally don't think he survives, and I even raised a possibility in my breakdown for episode 6 of him potentially sacrificing himself to protect Tommy and Maria. We've also got Titus with a knife. For those who may have missed it, this is Roberto Ortega's new hitter. Whether he proves to be as useless as the last few that we've seen on Force, he probably will. Let's wait and see. But it definitely is getting interesting, especially now that we've seen the shift in Miguel's stance with Tommy, and also a shift which will most likely see them creating an unlikely alliance, especially when Tommy is kicked out of CBI, which does look like it is going to happen in episode 7. Just as a reminder, there is also the storyline around Miguel killing Che's son. Not sure whether that will pop back up in these last 3 or 4 episodes, but definitely worth keeping in mind. But when you consider everything together, it does look like the walls are now closing in on Miguel Garcia. Now, next up, we have the relationship between Jernard and Shanti. Now, with Jernard and Shanti, we know their relationship has taken a huge turn. We could see it back in episode 4 that it was a ticking time bomb. Ever since Shanti mentioned that she picked the wrong brother, the relationship was basically done. The only thing that was holding this together was the very small belief that Jernard might actually come through with a meeting with Che, which would then allow them to rise to power. But the relationship was always hanging on a very thin thread. And with Jernard making his own moves, Shanti's about to make hers. We've got her with a baseball bat, she's going to take it to Jernard's car, but I guess the next question is, what does Shanti do next? Again, lines in the sand, alliances and relationships are shifting, unlikely alliances, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. It does seem like Tommy and Shanti's interests will align after episode 7. Tommy will be kicked out of CBI, Jernard has made an enemy out of Shanti, and we all know the history and beef between Jernard and Tommy. So, I do think that unlikely alliance between Tommy and Shanti is definitely one step closer. But over to the juicy parts of the trailer, which involves Vic Flynn, Tommy, Jernard, and also Diamond.
If Tommy wouldn't have showed up, me and you would be on top.
I mean, you just stepped over me.
It was unanimous.
Now, we've got Tommy and Vic putting a body in a trunk. It may be related to who Vic seems to be taking a shot at here, or it may be actually Vic making a move of his own. We know he's working to get out from under Tommy's thumb. His balls finally dropped in episode 6, and he decided to stop being a little bitch. So it may even be a move without Tommy that he's making on his own. Either way, I do think Vic Flynn is done with everybody thinking he's a joke. He's still in the shadow of not just Walter Flynn. Tommy even put Claudia above the likes of Vic. He mentioned that she's the baddest Flynn. And we also had Tommy telling him in episode 6 to his face that as soon as he got to Chicago, he slept with Gloria straight away, and he also snapped his best friend's arm. So, I mean, come on. What does that tell you about Victor? Nobody takes him seriously. So Vic definitely needs to up his game, that's for sure. But again, hold on to that thought. I'm going to come back round to it in just a moment. Now, with Jernard and Vic, we've got Jernard mentioning if Tommy hadn't shown up, then it would have been them who would be on top, which I definitely do have to disagree with. They were making backyard deals with the Yardies all the way back in season 1, episode 1. That's hardly them being on top. I get the notion that Jernard kept CBI together when Diamond was in prison. I can also understand Jernard's perspective and why he hates Tommy so much, but it wasn't exactly like they were on top of Chicago either. Same with Vic. If anything, Vic would probably still be under the shadow of Walter Flynn, or just like I mentioned earlier, even his sister. So I'd probably have to disagree. However, it does seem like Jernard has given Vic some food for thought. If he finds out that Tommy is in trouble with the CBI, if he's on the verge of being kicked out or he's already been kicked out, then Vic may even create the alliance with Jernard and CBI. Again, I've always maintained throughout this entire season, I always thought Vic would have that power at some point in the season because Gary Lennon did give the clues prior to season 3. As much of a joke he's been, I have always maintained power does like to shift from player to player during a season of power, and it does now look like Vic is done playing games. Having said that, Tommy once said to Walter Flynn back in season 1, it's balls that get you in the room, but it's the brains that are going to keep you in the room. Vic definitely seems to have found his balls, but does he have the brains to keep himself in the room with the major players? Same thing with Jernard. Does he have the brains to keep himself in the room? Let's remember, it's Tommy who's been making all the strategic moves ever since he came to Chicago. He's the one who helped put CBI back on top. For example, the quick thinking and execution with the Assyrians back in episode 6. So with that being said, let's talk about Tommy and him being kicked out of CBI.
I mean, you just stepped over me. It was unanimous. I'm gonna have so much fun killing you.
Now we know the move that Diamond made in episode 6, he was done with everybody believing that he was second in command to Tommy at the top of CBI's hierarchy. So he made the move with Jernard with the Chinese with Madame Wu, who's now providing them with fentanyl. He didn't even consult Tommy with the decision, and now he's taken it to a vote with the rest of their coalition, where he mentions the vote was unanimous. So I do think we now know which way the vote will go in episode 7. And rightfully so, Tommy is absolutely fuming. He's the one who helped put CBI back on top, just like we mentioned before. His quick thinking, strategy, quick execution. When he spots an opportunity, he definitely doesn't waste time. He goes for it straight and executes. But this is definitely going to cause big problems and a huge divide within CBI. Maybe Diamond also finds out Tommy helped Miguel back in episode 6. That's definitely something that would also contribute towards this divide, which will all lead to this moment right here. A fight between Tommy and Diamond. Not gonna lie, it does take me back to my childhood. I may have to get some Jim Ross commentary out from the good old WWF days or WrestleMania 22 when Mick Foley speared Edge right through the table. So you may even hear some old WWF commentary when you hear my breakdown for episode 7, when we see Diamond smashing Tommy through the table. But we've got Tommy and Diamond in that fight in the barbershop basement. We've got Jernard and some of the CBI guys in the background. And honestly, they can't believe what they're seeing. Jernard's probably loving it because he's wanted Tommy dead for a very long time. He's been kind of whispering in Diamond's ear ever since the beginning of season 3, which to be honest actually goes back to season 1. And it does look like Tommy is going to get his ass handed to him in episode 7, which is probably the first time since he almost got beat to death by the Serbians back in power. It's not going to be to that extent, but it does look like Tommy Egan will definitely get his ass handed to him and get kicked out of CBI. It's going to be one hell of a moment in episode 7, and something I think we've been waiting for ever since the beginning of season 3, Tommy versus Diamond. I also want to raise the point around Marshall and D-Mac holding Tommy back. Are they holding Tommy back, or are they kind of holding Tommy as in they've decided to pick the side of CBI? Again, this definitely goes back to the episode title, Lines in the Sand. Characters are going to have to pick a side. I'm just hoping D-Mac hasn't decided to turn his back on Uncle Tommy, which I don't think he will, or at least I hope not, but let's wait and see. I do also think a few members of the CBI will also be Team Tommy. Maybe characters like Big Smurf and maybe a few others. Maybe Raheem, because his loyalty does also lie with Shanti. So definitely intrigued and excited to see this fight between Tommy and Diamond, and how it causes a huge tear within CBI.
I'm gonna have so much fun killing you.
Now the trailer does round off with Jernard also telling Tommy he can't wait to kill him, with Tommy's reaction kind of just being a little deflated. Normally it's Tommy who's making these threats, not the other way around, but this time it does look like Jernard does have the power for a change. I don't actually think for 1 second Jernard would ever smoke Tommy. I do think it will be the other way around, maybe even D-Mac smoking Jernard. But it definitely is good to see Tommy with his back against the wall, and Gary Lennon stripping his plot armor of him being Superman. As much as I'm Team Tommy, and I always will be, I do think at times he's made to be indestructible in power, but that's something that will definitely change in episode 7. But that's a wrap for the trailer for all things episode 7, along with a couple of extra scenes from previous teasers and trailers as well. It definitely is getting more and more interesting as each episode passes by. Alliances will be shifting in episode 7. There are going to be some fights, some physical, some mental. For example, the mental warfare between Seng and Stacy Marx. I do think both have suspicions, but they probably won't confront each other, just make moves behind each other's backs. When it comes to CBI, Jernard, Shanti, Miguel and Marquez cartel, it's definitely on site. And then there's a huge fight between Tommy and Diamond. And then with the rest, who picks who? The floor is now yours. Drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section. And as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.